Hello everyone, my name is Abby and I'm the Young Adult Assistant at the Twin Lakes Library System and I use she, her pronouns. So for today for Slice of Life, I kind of hinted at it in my Monday video where I would be talking about like Shakespeare retellings and film. I'm actually going to be doing more like Shakespeare in film essentially, so some of these, actually two of these are just like basically the original work with some twists to it, and then one of them is an actual total retelling of the work that's done just like it's written for a more modern audience. It's set in a modern setting, and it has all these different changes, and it's actually one of my favorite movies. So I will be saving that one for last. But the first one that I want to talk about is Romeo and Juliet, and this is the 1996 version. So this is starring Leonardo DiCaprio and I believe Claire Danes, who is not a very common name, so don't be surprised if you don't know who that is. But this film is essentially the same Romeo and Juliet story. Like they speak the way that they do in the original stage work. It's all, same dialogue, but it's set in a more modern setting. I believe it's set somewhere in LA, and it's between two teenagers who are in a modern place and, environment, but they are speaking the traditional, like, Shakespearean sort of language. So it's kind of interesting to see how it's, like, a mix of the original with the new. I think it, like, is trying to appeal to a more current audience, and this came out in 1996, so it's 25 years old now, but like in the time it was very modern, and it is still like more, I think, approachable for a modern audience. And I think that putting it in the real world makes it more available to more audiences and people who don't like Shakespeare. Though I will say the dialogue does throw you off at first. It is actually very interesting as a storytelling narrative, and I do enjoy it. The next one is MacBeth, and this came out in 2010, and as I said in my reading talk, MacBeth is my favorite Shakespeare work. I am so in love with that play. I think it's amazing, and there are a lot of adaptations in the world of MacBeth and, presentations and ways. I particularly like this one. I actually had to watch this one for a paper I was writing for class because I was in a Shakespeare class. But I watched this for a paper, and I think it's an amazing rendition of MacBeth, and not a lot of people, I think, talk about it or think it's like something they should watch. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. But this work is starring Patrick Stewart. So if you don't know him by name, Patrick Stewart plays Charles Xavier in the original X-Men series, and he was in Star Trek Next Generation, so he's been in a lot. He's very famous, but he is also a very prominent stage actor. And so basically the BBC, which is the British Broadcasting Company, I believe is what the acronym stands for, put on a version of MacBeth where they directed it, and it's basically like a play, but they filmed it. So it's not like it's set in one setting or it's a very old, the traditional setting that MacBeth is supposed to take place in. It's kind of, I believe it's done, it's very interesting. It's there's a hospital, I believe, and there's more modern setting. It's interesting. I really liked it, but it's essentially they filmed a play, and they had you watch it as it was a movie, and it's a really cool way of doing it because I think it still pays homage to the original MacBeth really well, but also kind of has an interesting twist on it. I feel like a lot of people don't like Shakespeare because they think he's boring, which some works I will say I don't like because I think they're boring, and they don't want to sit down and watch this old-fashioned play. But this one is it's like watching a thriller movie, like watching something fold out in front of you, and it's like a train wreck you can't stop looking at, because if you know the story of Macbeth, it's essentially Macbeth is manipulated by Lady Macbeth to kill all these people so he can become the king. And he's slowly sort of losing his sanity as he goes on. And I think that this work does a really good job of kind of capturing that, and Patrick Stewart does an amazing job at acting, and you kind of see the descent into madness, and it's so cool. Really a big fan. And then the last one I'm going to be talking to you about, which is my favorite, I actually own it, and that's 10 Things I Hate About You. It came out in 1999, and this movie is a retelling of Taming of the Shrew. So because this is as like well known, I'm going to give a little background. Taming of the Shrew, or 10 Things I Hate About You, it stars Julia Stiles, this girl right here, and she plays a girl named Kat, and she is not interested in what like other high school girls are. She doesn't want to date. She doesn't want to like be boys. She's very feminist. She likes to go out and listen to like bands at concerts and all this stuff. She's very much the I'm not like other girls trope, which now is a little dated, but it was fun. It's a fun movie to watch. But essentially she has a younger sister named Bianca, and Bianca wants to have a boyfriend and, you know, kind of have a date and do all this other stuff. And her dad essentially tells her she can't do any of it until Catherine gets one, or Kat. And because he thinks that that'll never happen because Kat has no interest in it. And so Bianca has this boy that she likes named Joey. But there's a boy who likes Bianca named Cameron, and he's new, and he knows about the rule, so he kind of tries to figure out a way to get it to where Bianca's can date. So he basically meets up with this guy named Patrick, who's played by Heath Ledger, and he's kind of the school bad boy and like mysterious, and he's like, I think you should date Kat so I can date Bianca. And then the other popular boy, Joey, wants him to, kind of pays him to make Kat interested in him so that he can date Bianca. But as you know, he falls in love with her, and it's just wonderful. I love this movie so much. I actually recently rewatched it too, and it still holds up. But this movie is like the perfect, I think, like you're watching Shakespeare without even knowing you're watching Shakespeare. Like I said, it's a retelling of Taming of the Shrew, but it's done in an entirely modern way. So like modern 1999, which again is now almost 22 years old, but at the time. But you know, you're following a high schoolers, you're following like young people, and they're kind of at these interesting time periods in their lives. Kat is applying to college and trying to sort of figure herself out. Bianca's sort of trying to establish what she wants, and if she wants what she thought she did originally. So I think it's really appealing to a younger audience, especially teenagers. I think will really like this adaptation in this Shakespeare film. It's so funny. It's really funny. There are many scenes in this that are so funny. And it kind of makes fun of itself too. There's a girl, this isn't really like a spoiler, but there's a girl who's like Kat's best friend, and she's obsessed with Shakespeare and, you know, and all of his works. And so they sort of poke fun at the fact that it is a Shakespeare retelling with her, and I think it's really entertaining. Yeah, and Heath Ledger's in it, so why wouldn't you want to watch it? But I just think it's really good, and kind of like the books I was telling you about on Monday, where you might not normally like Shakespeare because you think it's boring or it's too hard to understand. This is like really good. Like you basically get what this story is supposed to be about, but in an entirely modern setting. So yeah, so those are the 3 movies and I wanted to talk to you about today, and I will see you again next time. Bye!